Hello, welcome to LLG's Random But Real. My name is Lisa L. Gilliam, and I am the host of this podcast, where we have conversations about any and all things random with an entree, not a side dish, of mental health advocacy. I use my performance, communication, and literary art skills to bring awareness about mental health and other topics. Therefore, whether I am singing, speaking, or writing, it is my desire that my words will be melodic, just like music to your ears. Please note, the comments expressed in this podcast are those of mine and or the guests. They are not intended to be used for professional guidance. Please seek a licensed professional if you are in need of care or therapy, experiencing trauma, or are in danger. And if in danger, please call 911. Thank you in advance for listening to LLG's Random But Real. I hope you enjoy this podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of LLG's Random But Real podcast. I am your host, Lisa Gilliam, otherwise known as One Singing Lady. And I just want to preface this. I was actually in urgent care yesterday. Feel a lot better today. You know, these shows are pre-recorded. So by the time you hear this, my prayers that I would have been out and no issues. The pollen has been pretty high in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And whenever I can, I like to go outside walking as opposed to going to the gym. And I decided to go a few times this past week, and that pollen messed me up, y'all. That turned into some allergies and maybe even some sinus issues. But for so long, if you've listened to my podcast back in the day, maybe, thank God, 2 decades ago or so, a decade to 2 decades or so, I didn't have insurance at one point. So I learned to do or use these home remedies because I couldn't really afford to go, honestly, to the doctor. Praise God that is not the case now. However, I'm so used to, trying home remedies first. I did that, and it got to a point where I was wheezing, and every time I was trying to speak or do anything in excess, I should say, I would be wheezing. And so I finally decided, or after listening to the urging of some coworkers, to go to urgent care and get a breathing treatment, and also just to check out some other stuff. And so I might cough throughout this podcast. I'm trying not to, but excuse me. Just letting you know that that's the reason why. But I really do want to finish out the season strong. I promise you all that I will give you a whole season, and I have a few more episodes to record before the end of the season. And so since I was awakened out of my sleep because of wheezing while I was lying down, I decided I will record right now. And as you know, this show is random but real. So I talk about some things not planned. They just kind of come to mind, and then that's that. No editing. So what you hear, what you see online when it comes to this is what you get. So I woke up, and I can't lie, I live near a hospital where I've heard not the greatest amount of reviews. And I've had friends who've transferred family members from this hospital. And I've also had friends whose relative has died at this hospital. I've had friends who have been patients at this hospital. And so, without saying the name, I don't want to go to this hospital. I live further away from one where I'm a little bit more comforted. And that hospital, which I've shared on previous podcasts, is also where my mom died. But, to my knowledge, the hospital itself didn't have anything to do with that. It was just her time. I guess God just, called her home at that time. So I've been to that hospital before for asthma attacks and other injuries. I broke my toe, or, um, you know, will be having, if you listen to the other podcast, more than likely we'll be having surgery there as well when the surgery does take place, because that's the hospital that my doctor or surgeon is associated with. But I digress. So I woke up, and although I might sound, my voice is different. I actually sound a little bit better than I did last night or the day before. When I lie back down, I'm still wheezing, and so it's kind of got me scared a little bit. I grew up with asthma or having asthma. I used to have like really really bad asthma attacks, but because my family wasn't like rolling in the dough, I would try to do whatever, like I said, I could to avoid having to go to the doctor, honestly, for expenses. I remember when we were younger and we lived in Capitol Hill at the time, my mom used to work, she was a nurse. And so the agency that she worked for, the closest place to take me was downtown DC. And it was pretty much really late at night or the middle of the night. And my mom would always sacrifice, for myself, for children, pretty much for the people that she loved. And I remember us, I think, taking a cab because we didn't have a vehicle or getting a ride. I was pretty young then, and went, to go get help or assistance. And another time I remember when I was in college, and Richmond had pretty bad pollen as well. So I'm not a person that really sleeps with the windows open. Fresh air, I love it, but during times of the season, I can't do it because it will definitely trigger allergies and or asthma. Funny enough, side note, I didn't really have allergies until in my 30s, and I worked at I'll say a drug rehabilitation center for mothers and children, and they had all of this grass, all the beautiful fields, and then all of a sudden, I went to the doctor, and they were like, "Yep, you have allergies." And so there is a unfortunate medicated regimen that I have now daily to try to prohibit asthma attacks, prohibit the different pollens and dust and trees, etc., that I can be or have found to be allergic to. Because I also sought out dermatologists, and so I say all that to say, for me to now have an asthma attack after not having one for years, even though this was acute, it's still, not being able to breathe. It's a difficult situation. Thank God, excuse me, I am able to breathe now, but not without any type of issues or complications. So I was telling you about the story when I was in Richmond, and I remember it was so hard to breathe or catch my breath. We were, this is in the 90s, y'all, so don't talk about me, but we had a microwave in the building, but it was all the way in the basement. And so I had to climb, but I was on the third floor. So that would be, two, I guess, sets of steps just to get to the basement. So just imagine the basement to, first floor to second floor and then third floor. I believe that's right. It's been a while since I've been in that hall. And so I would have to stop at each step just to catch my breath, just so that I could walk to the next step. And that was just to warm up probably some oodles and noodles or some type of broth, just to try to, get the phlegm out and try to clear my chest. And so finally I remember calling my mom. I was like, "Mom, I don't feel well," whatever. But I was thinking about the ambulance fees, always thinking about others. And I knew we didn't have it like that. I didn't have a whole bunch of extra money on my account, but my mom, my dad was deceased by that time. My grandmother, my aunt, even always found a way to make sure I had what I need. My mom's, one of her closest friends, Miss Strange, she was like another mom to me, would always make sure that I had what I needed. So I don't know why I would not go to the hospital. I even had some friends on campus that drove. I didn't think to ask them to drop me off there or whatever. Probably because I was thinking about, well, how am I going to get back? Because sometimes I didn't have cab fees or whatever, or there were people who might have, later on promise, hey, I'll take you such and such, and just would forget. And so I learned not to really depend on other people. Like I said, if you've been following the podcast, that I've gone through rejection and abandonment and, different types of things like that. So, I just kind of, my mom was my ace, and so I remember calling her and she's like, Lisa, if you can't breathe, go to the hospital. Like, it wasn't even a thing for her. And I was just like, the ambulance fee is like such and such amount of dollars, da da da, whatever. And I think, I can't remember if I called the ambulance then or if I did end up getting a ride. And I feel so much better after going to the hospital. Usually, thank God, I don't have to stay. I only had to stay overnight, and actually overnight turned into a week. um, this was in the 80s, and I went to the Budweiser Superfest concert in 1986. I believe it was at RFK Stadium in DC. And if you know anything about that stadium, or the former stadium that it was, it's still there, but I do believe they have plans of doing something with it now. It's open air. And so that was the first time that I'd ever smelled marijuana. I didn't even know what that smelled like, and didn't find out that that's what it was until probably years later. I don't smoke, once again, because all smoke, except for maybe, like, honestly, the pipe triggers asthma. So no cigarette smoke, no weed, please, nothing that has. I can't even be around hookah if it's too many people doing that at one time, because it all just triggers. So I guess I got some sensitive lungs. Besides, y'all know I'm a vocalist and a speaker, and I need my voice. And so anything that's going to get in there and cloud my lungs, nah, y'all can have it. I'm not interested. I wish that no one would have it, but definitely not me. So that is definitely one thing in my life that I've never engaged in. But of course, I've been around secondhand smoke. And so being in a stadium, and then the next day, I think I either had a soccer tournament, or maybe my sibling did, or maybe both of us did, and it was raining. And so between the smell of marijuana or weed or whatever term you call it now, because I know there are a lot of slang terms, we're not here to talk about that today, and the rain, it triggered me to have an asthma attack, and I was in the hospital for a week, and that was miserable. And I was like, I don't ever want to be in here for a week. So maybe that's what caused me not to engage when a lot of my friends, family, etc. did excuse me, engage in smoking. Okay, so that's been a long preface of where I wanted to go today. We all have different things that happen in our life, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, financial. I was just watching this video on social media, and it was talking about how this guy chose his wife and loved her basically in the darkest moments of her time. And I am dating now, and I've had very interesting dating situations, made some positive choices and some mistakes. And being a co-author of a book, 21 Days, that deals with relationships, I would think that a lot of the things that I learned, I do apply it, but I'm like, oh, I got to apply more to it. I was dating someone who, because I'm, like I said, a little bit, I'm not scared per se, but a little bit, because I can't remember the last time I had a full-blown asthma attack. And when you're wheezing or you have difficulty breathing, it does make it difficult, to the point this time I actually lost my sense of smell for like a day and a half. And that's never happened to me, where I couldn't smell anything. I tried peppermint oil. I was dusting, and this particular cleaner, you can always smell the lemon scent. I had tea, honey, cleaning supplies. Probably shouldn't have been doing any cleaning while I was wheezing. But like I said, at that time, it wasn't that bad. It got incredibly worse. And nothing. I couldn't smell anything. So now I can smell a little bit, thank God, but I'm still wheezing. So I was lying down and I'm like, if it sounds like, um, crack pop, was it? What's the Rice Krispies slogan? Um, Pop, crackle, whatever. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So it's snap, crackle, pop. Gosh, it took me a long time to get that. Excuse me. That's how I feel like my chest sounds. It's like when I lie down now, I'm still wheezing. I'm like, well, the medicine they gave me should have helped. The breathing treatment that I received should have helped. And they said it should. And it did open me up. Like I said, I'm able to speak a little bit better now, even though I'm still coughing. This is nothing. And if you're wondering, just in case you're wondering, yes, I tested for COVID before I went to the urgent care. It was negative. They tested for COVID as well as flu, and it was negative. And so basically, like I said, it was inflammation in my lungs. This is caused issues, and basically it's asthma related. So I was lying there and I couldn't sleep anymore. I went to bed fairly early, and this is a really busy week at work. And so I'm like, I really need to be at work, but I also need to rest. One of the things about having an asthma attack, you definitely don't want to overdo it, because that could also trigger it back up, at least for me. And so I was lying there. I finally decided to get up, and after a while decided to do this podcast. And I was sitting there because I had dated this guy who is in I'll say a medical field, not a doctor, but we were so close, used to speak pretty much every day. And one day he decided, I need to deal with some things or whatever. And so I remember we didn't end on like a bad note. And I was sitting there and I'm like, I really want to reach out because I can't call urgent care till 8 in the morning. And it was 5-ish or something like that, 5 a.m. Definitely before 6 a.m. when this was happening, when I, was waking out of my sleep, just to ask him, hey, what do you think I should do? Because like I said, it's been a while for asthma attack, or that I've had an asthma attack. I can't even remember the last time I had a full blown one where I had to go to the hospital to get a breathing treatment. But I've had bronchitis, and I've also had upper respiratory infections. And so I know when the sinuses or allergies, when it takes on one shape, eventually, for whatever reason, those are the routes that I used to usually end up in. And I definitely didn't want to deal with bronchitis anymore, because that kept me down for a few days. And I wasn't able to breathe even worse, nor the upper respiratory infection. So I was trying to catch it before it turned into that. So basically, and like I said, sitting down like this, I'm a lot better. But once I lie down, I'm still wheezing. And I'm like, well, the medicine hasn't kicked in yet. Maybe he can like give me some pointers. And then I stopped in my tracks. And that's the reason why I'm really doing this podcast. So funny how things that happen in our life cause us to think about other things or reframe things. And what I decided to do is not send a message, because I chose me. If that guy wanted to be there, then he would. And I would have had access to be able to ask the questions that I wanted to ask without me wondering whether he would respond or not respond, even though things were not ended on a sour note. Sometimes you just have to choose you and trust that God is going to work out whatever it is, regardless of who said they would be there or who said they wouldn't be there. As I mentioned previously in this podcast and others, I've dealt with a lot of abandonment and a lot of rejection in my life. And nothing hurts me more than when I've told you about this and you choose to be one of the people who do the same thing. And sending, a message, whether it's text or email or voice, instead of having an actual conversation, has never been okay with me. And I'm not necessarily talking about that guy that I was just mentioning, but that has happened in my life as well. And I'm just wondering, when are people going to communicate in an effective manner? When did it change? I feel like social media, that it was okay to send a message. I've gotten some weird things through my DMs as opposed to just meeting people. How about, being a vocalist, being a speaker? I'm always doing events. And so if you're really interested in not stalking me, right, but interested in supporting, then you could show up at one of those events and you could have a conversation with me directly. Show support. You could post, what I'm doing and tag me in it. Lets me know, hey, you know what, I can't be there, but I believe in what you're doing. Show support. And so I stopped dead in my tracks and I was like, I'm not going to ask this guy, even though he may have the knowledge and the opinion to help me. And he may see this podcast or hear about it. I don't know. We're not friends on social media anymore. So maybe or maybe not. And it's really not about him. It's just that I came to the realization that I don't need anyone to be in my life that doesn't want to be there for whatever reasons. And it just is a reminder of where I was with even my female friends, my family. Like at almost 51, I really am choosing me. And I just really want the latter years to be better than my previous years. I want to make better decisions daily. Literally asking God to forgive me for all of the poor choices that I made and asking him to show me how to make better choices in certain areas of my life, to get back to discernment of people, whether, a lot of people say they're going to be there, but they're not. And for whatever reason, I'm a very forgiving person, so I don't have any ill will over the years from the guys that have hurt me, whether it was on purpose or whether it was not on purpose. But I would appreciate conversations. I do like actual closure, and I know I may not ever receive it. It's so funny that 21 Days lists myself and my co-author, Tracy and Worley's, different guys that we dated and different things that we learned from the dates. And I'm like, I feel like the last 3 people that I've dated seriously, not a relationship. I was only in a relationship with one of them, but dated seriously, I've learned more lessons because of the experiences through them after writing the book than I did before writing the book. And I do believe, honestly, vengeance is the Lord's, it's not mine. So I'm not wanting to get back or trying to, hurt or see anybody hurt or whatever. But I do welcome the conversations. If any of them ever listen to this, anybody from my past, whether that's friends, romantic relationships, and significant others, or family, I think conversation is so important. And so I know you're probably like, wait, she's talking about asthma and then she talks about choosing her, but that's my whole point. We have things in life that happen, these aha moments, and me having this acute asthma attack was an aha moment for me I'm just going to wait and see. I'll call urgent care when they open up in the morning, and I will go get some tea, try to get some warm liquids inside of me, and make sure I'm doing what I should be doing, not doing anything excessively. And if I go to work and I still don't feel better, I know how to go home or go back to urgent care, depending on what they say. But I'm betting on me instead of relying on somebody who chose not to be there. And that's a good feeling. Doesn't mean that I wasn't hurt. And y'all know I'll be honest about my experiences, but even if somehow this podcast reaches some of those people of my past and they do want to have a conversation, I welcome that. But I'm not going to sit around and, sulk or, wait for that to happen. I've learned a lot in these last few years, and I'm going to continue to keep going. I hope I don't have to have any more asthma attacks and aha moments like this, because I do not like being sick. But, a lot of people don't. But I'm so grateful that this was not as bad as it has been in the past. And I'm grateful for the experiences that I've experienced post writing 21 days. I hope that y'all will go out there and support myself and Tracy and purchase the book. It really is a good read. Coincidentally enough, one of my exes called me the other day and he was like, I'm reading the book for the third time. And, he's actually now married with the family, and, we're cool friends. We still catch up every now and then. Excuse me. Excuse me. And, just hearing his perspective was cool. It was different. So I do appreciate when people purchase the book and they share how they feel. Excuse me. Sorry about that. This is probably the most I've talked since I've gone to urgent care, or even before urgent care, because I was reducing it. So reducing talking. But I say that all that to say, I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate the support that you've given us thus far with regards to the book. And I hope that you will go out and get your copy. You can find the information on my website, www.lisalgilliam.com. And find me on social media at One Singing Lady. And that's the number 1. Or YouTube. .com at youtube.com/ONESINGINGLADY, One Singing Lady spelled out. Thanks so much for your time, and I pray that you have some beautiful aha moments that teach you lessons, positive choices, and that you choose you in this year 2024. Have a good one. One Singing Lady out. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's podcast, LLG's Random But Real. I appreciate your support and your time. Until next time, please make sure you visit my website, www.lisalgilliam.com, so you can find out more information about where this podcast is streamed, about my book, about the CDs, and spoken word. Again, I appreciate your support, and I look forward to hearing from you and you all listening to the next episode. Have a wonderful day.